Hey there, Board Game Brody here with Let's Table It, where we get games to the table. Like this copy here, this prototype copy of Comic Book Boom, which is a push your luck hand management type game about publishing comic books in the 1990s. The game is planning for crowdfunding by Gadabout Games. And so this copy, again, is a prototype copy, so everything you see can possibly change. Here's the game set up on the table. You have a deck of comic books here in yellow, enhancements in blue, and a deck of stunts in pink. You're trying to hype and increase readership for each of the comic books that you decide to publish. Each round you spend money to gain cards and then gain money depending on how well that your comic books do. The game ends when either the bubble bursts with this token being raised to the top of this track, or if a player becomes bankrupt and has no money at the beginning of a round. The game is played in phases where players can all perform the phase at the same time, most of them, and each player starts with $10 at the beginning of the game. The first phase is the research phase, where you can either gain a card from any deck for $1 for each card in your hand, or instead of using your money, you can instead redeem one research token if you gain one throughout the game, which you will. You can use it instead of paying for a card. You will then use that research token in place of paying. So when doing this, you will choose which deck you want to gain a card from. You will draw 3 cards. You will look at them and choose one card that you want to keep. The others go in the discard pile face down. Whenever a deck gets emptied, you will shuffle the discard pile to place back and continue playing. Your chosen card is then placed into your hand, and at the beginning of the game, you have no cards, so your first card costs nothing, it's free. But then you have 1 card, so if you want to gain a second card, it will cost you 1, and then now you have 2 cards in your hand, so the next one is going to cost you 2. But players will research as many times as they would like, gaining any of the 3 different types of cards. Next, you will develop by playing any number of cards out from your hand face down in front of you. Books are placed out separately face down, and then any number of stunt or enhancement cards are placed face down on top of either a face down comic book or an already placed out face up comic book, because at the end of the round, you gain back your enhancement and your stunt cards back into your hand. And your comic book cards will stay out in front of you, and you can play a different combination of cards on those to gain points for each round. If you decide to not play certain cards during this phase, then you will lose them, and they are returned to the discard area. You might want to do this if a card isn't benefiting you much, but when it gets returned to your hand, it makes gaining additional cards more expensive. Once everyone has emptied their hand of cards, either placing them in front of them or discarding them, the development phase ends and the publish phase will then begin. In the publish phase, players will one at a time reveal their cards. For each book in a player's line, they will count the number of hype icons indicated by the flame icon that are listed on the comic book card itself or from added stunt cards played on top of it. If the comic book card lists a theme on the top left, you will move it up on the market board the number of spaces equal to the amount of hype icons. If there are 2 themes for that comic book, they both raise the number of hype icons shown. You will then adjust the market board when revealing each comic book from all the players. And if a theme moves up to the top of the market board, it gets labeled as overhyped and will eventually be moved to the bottom of the track at the 0 readability level. It's now profit time with the profit phase. Now, players do this simultaneously, and if any of the players' comic books have become overhyped due to its theme marker, being raised too high, then you will have to cancel that comic book by discarding that card and any cards played on top of it as well to the discard piles. The owner of the book collects $1 for each card that gets discarded, including the comic book card itself. Then for each canceled comic book, the bubble marker is moved up 1 level. And for all the other comic books, players will then collect their profits. This is done by taking the comic book's readability and timesing that value by the collectability represented by the diamonds. The readership value is determined by the highest level of one of its themes shown on the market board. It's represented by a book icon with a value on top of it. Some cards don't have themes and list the readability on the card itself. The higher you push one of the comic book's themes without, getting overhyped, there is a higher potential of making more money off of it. The collectability is determined by the diamond icons on enhancement cards or on the comic book card itself. You can have any number of enhancements or stunt cards on the comic books, but there can never be a duplicate of cards placed on the same comic book. And if it turns out its readability or its collectability is 0, then you will earn no money for it. But other players can also increase a theme without you playing your own cards to increase it on that board. So there is a potential of having a comic book without other cards on it and still benefiting from the cards that other players played. After each player takes the profits for each of their comic books, then the cleanup phase then starts. And cleanup phase can trigger effects on certain cards sometimes. Those things will happen now. This might be moving up the bubble marker one other step, or maybe ending a comic book with the death of card, discarding that book and putting a new one into your hand. If any themes are above on the market board and overhyped, move them to the very bottom level of the market. The bubble marker is then moved up a level and will always get moved up one level each round. If any themes on the market board are higher than the bubble marker, then they are moved down where the bubble marker is at. All other themes below the marker are left alone. All temporary cards marked with the stars icon is then returned back to each player's hand. All comic books are left face up in front of each player. Lastly, the player with the least amount of money gains a research token. At this point, players check to see if the game has ended by looking where the bubble marker is at, seeing if anyone has no money, and if not, then the next round begins again with the research phase and then gaining cards. If the bubble marker gets to the top and bursts, or a player is bankrupt, then the game ends. And the comic book boom ends, and the player with the most money wins the game. And well, that's Comic Book Boom by Gadabout Games. You get to publish books with the hottest 90s themes and then hype up readers with outrageous stunts and dazzle collectors with enhanced covers. Just be careful as you push the fans too far and the boom is gonna burst. The first thing I really enjoy about this game is how you use your money. And if you have a lot of cards in your hand, then all new cards will cost more money than if you had, less cards. This makes it a little more strategic in when and how many cards that you draw. That next card could earn you a ton of money, or it could not, do that much, yet cost you a lot if you decide to draw it when you have a lot of cards in your hand. Then when playing out cards, you will, be able to place different stunt cards on different comic books that you have and, make different combinations of that, raising the collectability, and also, that is what raises the readability as well. It will be different comic books because everyone will be moving up different themes to help, make them get more money. So you will have to adjust in what themes are hot. Also, when a theme gets to the top of the chart, it will drop and make some of the comic books less impressive. So theme moving up on the chart will change where you place your cards. It's a game with easy to follow rules and clear instructions on how to play the game, but also has some cool combinations with cards matched with other cards, mixed with the changing readability with the different themes. So there is some strategic insights to the game that will affect who wins, and the luck factor is low as you draw 3 cards and choose one of the 3, so you will gain cards that you more want at the time rather than stuck with whatever you draw. The theme is what it is. It might, excite you. Maybe you used to collect comic books, or maybe it is just something that you are okay with and not super excited about. But either way, the art is done very well. It's good to see the different themes and the art for each comic book and then adding features to each book to make them, more amazing and really to make you more money for the game. Again, this is Brody with Let's Table It, where we get games to the table. And I hope this gives you an idea of what Comic Book Boom does. for you and how it plays on the table. Please like and subscribe to our channel. We are working hard to bring to you videos like this one so you know if these games here are ones that you want to get to your own table.